The full moon hung heavy over the Silverpine Kingdom, casting silver light across the ancient ceremonial grounds where hundreds of wolves had gathered. Ilara stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart thundering against her ribs as she waited for the moment that would define her entire existence. Tonight was the lunar binding, the sacred ceremony where fated mates recognized their bond under the moon's blessing. For 23 years, Ilara had dreamed of this night, imagined the moment when her mate would step forward and claim her before the entire pack. The ceremonial drums began their rhythmic pulse. Alpha Marcus of the Silverpine pack stood at the center, his commanding presence drawing every eye. Ilara felt the mate bond flare to life inside her chest, that unmistakable pull that told her what her wolf had known for months. Marcus was hers, her fated mate, her destiny. She stepped forward, her simple white ceremonial dress flowing around her ankles. The crowd parted, whispers rippling through the assembled wolves as they recognized what was happening. An Omega approaching an Alpha during the binding ceremony, it was rare, but not unheard of when the bond was true. Marcus's eyes found hers across the clearing. For one breathless moment, Ilara saw recognition flare in those golden depths. He felt it too. He had to, but then his expression hardened into something cold and dismissive. "Stop," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying across the silent grounds. "Come no closer." Ilara froze, confusion and hurt lancing through her. "Marcus, you feel it. I know you do. The bond—" "There is no bond," he cut her off, his words sharp as claws. "Not one I will acknowledge." Gasps erupted from the crowd. The High Elder stepped forward, her ancient face creased with concern. "Alpha Marcus, the moon does not lie. If the Omega speaks truth, then the moon has made a mistake." Marcus's lip curled as he looked at Ilara, and she felt her world begin to crumble. "I am the Alpha of Silverpine. I will lead this pack into a new era of strength and power. I need a mate worthy of standing beside me, a strong she-wolf of noble blood who can give me powerful heirs." He gestured dismissively at Ilara. "Not a weak Omega who can barely shift and comes from a family of servants. My bloodline deserves better than this. Embarrassment." The words struck like physical blows. Ilara felt her knees weaken, felt the stares of hundreds of wolves boring into her. Shame burned through her veins, hot and poisonous. "Marcus, please," she whispered, hating how her voice broke. "The mate bond is sacred. You cannot simply reject." "I, Marcus Thornridge, Alpha of the Silverpine pack, reject you, Ilara Whitmore, as my fated mate." The formal words of rejection echoed across the ceremonial grounds like a death knell. "I sever this bond before the moon and before our kind. You are nothing to me." The mate bond snapped. Ilara screamed as agony tore through her chest, as if her very soul was being ripped apart. She collapsed to her knees on the cold ground, clutching at her heart, as the sacred connection shattered into 1,000 burning pieces. Wolves around her stepped back, some with pity in their eyes, others with barely concealed disgust at her display of weakness. Through the haze of pain, she heard Marcus's voice again, colder than winter frost. "Remove her from my sight, and let this be a lesson. The old ways are dead. Strength alone will determine the future of this pack, not some mystical notion of destined mates." Strong hands gripped Ilara's arms, hauling her to her feet. She couldn't see through her tears, couldn't breathe past the agony consuming her. As they dragged her away from the ceremonial grounds, she heard the celebration resume behind her, heard Marcus announce his chosen mate, Victoria Blackthorn, daughter of the wealthiest pack family, a warrior she-wolf of impeccable bloodline. They left Ilara at the edge of the pack's territory, alone in the darkness, with her shattered bond and broken heart. She didn't know how long she knelt there in the dirt, sobbing until she had no tears left. The physical pain of the rejection slowly faded to a dull, constant ache, but the emotional devastation remained fresh and raw. She was nothing, unwanted, rejected by her own fated mate before the entire kingdom. Finally, as dawn began to paint the sky in shades of grey, Ilara forced herself to stand. She couldn't stay here, not in Silverpine, not where every wolf would look at her with pity or contempt. She had to leave, had to find somewhere, anywhere else. With nothing but the clothes on her back and a shattered heart, Ilara walked away from the only home she'd ever known. Chapter 2. The Alpha King's Shadow. 3 months later, Ilara found herself in the Crimson Moon Kingdom, working as a servant in a small inn on the outskirts of the royal city. She kept her head down, spoke little, and tried to forget she was a wolf at all. The pain of rejection had settled into a constant hollow ache in her chest, a reminder that she was broken in a way that could never be repaired. The innkeeper was kind enough, paying her in meals and a small room in the attic. It wasn't much, but it was enough to survive. Ilara told herself that survival was all she could hope for now. She was cleaning tables in the common room when the royal guards entered. The inn fell silent, as 6 warriors in the crimson and gold colors of the Alpha King himself strode through the door. Their commander, a scarred beta with cold eyes, scanned the room with military precision. By order of Alpha King Daemon Silverclaw, all wolves in this establishment are to present themselves for inspection, he announced. There have been reports of rogue activity in this region. We will verify the identity and pack affiliation of every wolf here. Ilara's blood turned to ice. She had no pack affiliation anymore. Marcus had made sure of that when he rejected her. Packless wolves were viewed with suspicion at best, treated as rogues at worst, and rogues could be imprisoned or executed on sight in most kingdoms. She tried to slip toward the kitchen, hoping to disappear, but a guard's hand clamped down on her shoulder. "Where do you think you're going, little Omega?" His voice was rough with suspicion. I work here," Ilara stammered. "I need to return to my duties. You'll wait like everyone else." He hauled her back to the common room and shoved her into line with the other wolves. One by one, the guards verified each wolf's pack marks, the subtle scent signatures that identified which pack they belonged to. Ilara watched with growing dread as they moved down the line toward her. When they reached her, the commander inhaled deeply, then frowned. "No pack scent. You're either a rogue or you've been rejected." His eyes narrowed. "Which is it?" Ilara's voice failed her. Admitting rejection was almost as damning as being a rogue. "Seize her," the commander ordered. "We'll let the Alpha King decide." "That won't be necessary." The new voice cut through the room like a blade, deep and commanding with an undertone of absolute authority that made every wolf present instinctively bow their heads in submission. Even the royal guards straightened to attention. Ilara looked up, and her breath caught. The man who entered the inn was massive, easily 6.5 feet of pure muscle wrapped in black leather and steel. His dark hair was pulled back from a face that was all sharp angles and brutal beauty, with eyes the color of molten amber that seemed to see straight through to her soul. Power radiated from him in waves, not just the power of an alpha, but something deeper, more primal. This was a king among wolves. "Alpha King Daemon," the commander dropped to one knee. "We did not expect—" Clearly. Daemon's gaze swept the room before settling on Ilara. She felt pinned in place by those amber eyes, felt her wolf stir for the first time since the rejection, whimpering in recognition of a predator far more powerful than any she'd encountered. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and stood before her. Ilara's heart hammered as he leaned down, breathing in her scent. She expected disgust, expected him to confirm she was worthless, packless, broken. "A rejected mate bond," he said quietly, his voice lacking the contempt she'd braced for. Instead, there was something almost gentle in his tone. Recent, by the scent of it, and painful. Tears pricked Ilara's eyes. She refused to let them fall, refused to show more weakness. Daemon straightened and turned to his commander. "This Omega is under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me. Is that understood?" The commander's eyes widened. "Your Majesty, if she has no pack—" "She has a king." Daemon's voice dropped to a dangerous rumble. "That is pack enough. Now return to your duties. The rogue you're hunting is 3 miles west, hiding in the old mill. Go." The guards scattered immediately, leaving Ilara alone with the most powerful wolf in the kingdom. "What is your name?" Daemon asked. "Ilara," she whispered. "Ilara Whitmore. Ilara." He tested her name like a fine wine. "You will come with me to the royal palace. I have a proposition for you." Fear spiked through her. "Your Majesty, I'm just a servant. I have nothing to—" "I'm not asking." but his tone wasn't cruel, just firm. "You're packless and vulnerable. Out here you're prey. In my palace you'll be safe." "Why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Something flickered in those amber eyes. Pain, perhaps, or memory. "Because I know what it's like to be alone," he said quietly. "And because I have a daughter who needs you." Chapter 3. The Princess and the Palace. The royal palace of the Crimson Moon Kingdom was a sprawling fortress of dark stone and soaring towers, built into the mountainside like a crown of shadow and silver. Ilara had seen it from a distance before, had marveled at its beauty, but walking through its massive gates as a guest of the Alpha King himself felt surreal. Wolves bowed as Damon passed, their eyes tracking Ilara with undisguised curiosity. She kept close to the king's side, acutely aware of how out of place she looked in her simple servant's dress among the finery of the court. Damon led her through corridors lined with ancient tapestries and burning torches, up winding stairs to the residential wing of the palace. He stopped before an ornate door carved with wolves running beneath a full moon. "Before we discuss your position here, there's someone you need to meet." He pushed open the door. The room beyond was clearly a child's chamber, filled with toys and books and drawings pinned to the walls. And in the center, sitting on a plush rug surrounded by wooden wolves, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old, with her father's dark hair falling in waves around a delicate face. But it was her eyes that caught Ilara's breath. They were the same amber as Damon's, but filled with a sadness no child should carry. "Papa!" The girl scrambled to her feet and ran to Damon, who scooped her up with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with his warrior's build. "Hello, little moon," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I've brought someone to meet you. This is Ilara." The girl turned those heartbreaking amber eyes to Ilara, studying her with an intensity that seemed far too old for her years. "Is she going to leave too?" The question struck like a blade. Damon's jaw tightened. "No, Arya. Ilara is going to stay for a while. I thought perhaps she could spend time with you if you'd like that." Arya didn't answer immediately. She wriggled out of her father's arms and approached Ilara slowly, cautiously, like a wild thing testing whether it was safe to come closer. Ilara knelt down to the girl's level, offering a gentle smile. "Hello, Arya. Those are beautiful drawings you've made." "Mama used to draw with me," Arya said softly. "But she's gone now. She died when I was a baby." Ilara's heart clenched. "I'm so sorry." "Everyone leaves," Arya continued, her small voice matter-of-fact in the way children deliver devastating truths. "The nannies, the tutors, even the nice lady who read me stories. Papa says it's because I'm difficult, but I try to be good. I really do." "Arya," Damon started, pain flickering across his face. But Arya wasn't done. She stepped closer to Ilara, so close that Ilara could see the unshed tears trembling in her eyes. "Are you going to leave me too?" Ilara didn't know what to say. She couldn't make promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Arya's small hand reached out and touched Ilara's cheek, and something extraordinary happened. Ilara felt warmth bloom in her chest, felt her broken wolf stir and reach toward this child with a tenderness that shocked her. It wasn't the mate bond. That was forever shattered, but it was something equally powerful. "You're sad like me," Arya whispered. "I can feel it. Someone hurt you too." Tears spilled down Ilara's cheeks before she could stop them. This child, this precious little girl, understood her pain in a way no adult had. "Yes," Ilara admitted, "someone hurt me very badly, but I'm still here. I'm still trying." Arya threw her arms around Ilara's neck in a fierce hug. "Then you can stay with me," she declared. "We can be sad together, and then maybe we won't be sad anymore." Ilara held the little girl close, feeling something crack open inside her chest, not the painful breaking of rejection, but the tentative opening of a heart that had thought it could never feel again. Over Arya's head, she met Damon's gaze. The Alpha King was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. Relief mixed with something deeper, something almost vulnerable. "She hasn't let anyone close since her last nanny left 6 months ago," he said quietly. "She stopped talking for weeks. The healers said she was giving up, losing her will to connect. "Why do they leave?" Ilara asked. Damon's expression hardened. "Because they're terrified of me. The servants whisper that I'm cursed, that my mate's death during childbirth marked me as unlucky. They take positions here for the prestige and the gold, but they can't bear to stay under the same roof as the Widow King." Bitterness dripped from the title. "They endure it for a few months, then manufacture excuses to leave, and every time one goes, Arya's heart breaks a little more." Arya pulled back from Ilara, looking up at her with desperate hope. "Can you be my mommy? Just for a little while? I promise I'll be good. I won't ask for too many stories or make messes or cry when I have bad dreams." The request shattered something in Ilara. This child thought she had to earn love, had to be perfect to deserve someone staying. "Oh, sweetheart," Ilara cupped Arya's face gently. "You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to earn anything. You deserve someone who stays just because you exist, just because you're you." "Then will you?" Arya's voice was so small, so fragile with hope. Ilara looked at Daemon, saw him watching her with barely concealed desperation, and realized she was seeing the truth beneath the fearsome king's exterior. He was a father, terrified and helpless, watching his daughter fade and unable to stop it. She was broken. She was packless. She was rejected and worthless. But maybe, just maybe, she could be what this little girl needed. "Yes," Ilara whispered. "I'll stay." Chapter 4. Redemption. Under the moon. 6 months transformed everything. Ilara woke each morning in chambers far grander than any she'd imagined, but it was Arya's laughter ringing through the halls that made it feel like home. The little girl bloomed under Ilara's care, her sadness giving way to joy, her silence to endless questions and stories. They spent their days in the palace gardens, Arya teaching Ilara the names of all the flowers her mother had planted. They read books together in the library, Arya curled in Ilara's lap as sunlight streamed through stained glass windows. At night, Ilara sang old wolf lullabies and chased away nightmares with gentle words and steady presence. And slowly, carefully, Ilara began to heal too. Daemon watched it all with something like wonder in his amber eyes. He joined them for meals, his fearsome demeanor softening when Arya chatted about her day. He taught them both to play strategic wolf games in the evenings, his rare smiles becoming more frequent as his daughter's happiness returned. The palace servants noticed the change. The Widow King seemed less shadowed, less touched by grief, and the strange Omega who'd arrived with nothing had become beloved, not just by the princess but by the king himself. Ilara tried not to notice the way Daemon's gaze lingered on her, tried not to feel the flutter in her chest when his hand brushed hers, as they walked with Arya between them. She was broken, after all. Marcus's rejection had proven she was unworthy of love, but her wolf disagreed. Her wolf had been silent for months after the rejection, but Arya's love had awakened something in her, and now she felt her wolf watching Daemon with interest, with longing. It terrified her. The truth emerged on the night of the hunter's moon, when tradition demanded the pack run together through the sacred forest. Arya was too young to shift, so she would remain in the palace under guard. Ilara had planned to stay with her, but Arya insisted she go. "You need to run, Ilara," the little girl said wisely. "Your wolf is sad because you keep her locked inside. Papa says wolves who don't run forget who they are." So Ilara found herself in the forest clearing with hundreds of wolves, their king standing at the center in his massive black wolf form. She'd only shifted a handful of times since the rejection. The pain of it had made her wolf retreat deep inside. But tonight, under the full moon's pull, she felt the change come easier. Her wolf was small and silver, built for speed rather than strength. An Omega wolf through and through. She expected shame, expected to hide among the larger wolves. Instead, Daemon's massive black wolf approached her, his amber eyes gleaming in the moonlight. He lowered his head in a gesture of respect, then touched his nose to hers in the traditional greeting between wolves of equal standing. The pack gasped. Their king was showing deference to an Omega. Then Daemon threw back his head and howled, not a command, but an invitation. And when he took off running through the forest, he looked back at Ilara, waiting. She ran. They ran together through moonlit trees, leaping over streams and racing through clearings. Other wolves joined the run, but Ilara only had eyes for the king beside her, for the pure joy of movement and freedom and belonging she felt with him near. When they finally stopped in a clearing beside a crystal pool, both breathing hard, Ilara shifted back to human form. Damon did the same, and suddenly they were standing face to face, the air between them electric. "Ilara," he said softly, "these past months, watching you with Arya, seeing her happiness return, Your Majesty, please don't—" Ilara stepped back, fear rising. "I'm grateful for everything you've given me, but I can't. I'm not." "Not what? Not worthy?" Damon moved closer, his voice fierce. "Is that what he made you believe, that bastard Alpha who was too blind to see what the moon gave him?" Tears burned Ilara's eyes. He was right. "I'm weak. I'm nothing special. You brought my daughter back from the edge of darkness," Damon cut her off. "You gave her hope when I'd failed to. You made her believe in love again. If that's not strength, I don't know what is." He cupped her face gently, his touch reverent. "I've been alone for so long, Ilara, trapped in grief and duty, watching my daughter fade and unable to reach her. But you walked into our lives and filled all the empty spaces. You made us whole again." "Damon!" His name escaped as a whisper. "I know you're afraid. I know Marcus's rejection still haunts you. But that bond was flawed from the start. Not because of you, but because he wasn't worthy of you." Damon's amber eyes blazed with conviction. "The moon doesn't always get it right the first time. Sometimes the true bond comes later, stronger for the pain that came before." Ilara felt her heart hammering, felt hope and terror warring in her chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I love you," Damon said simply. "Not because of some mystical mate bond, but because of who you are. Because you're brave and kind and you love my daughter like she's your own. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be more than just a king. I'm just a man who's fallen completely in love." "I'm broken," Ilara whispered. "Then we'll be broken together," Damon replied, "and maybe, together, we'll find a way to be whole." He kissed her then, gentle and reverent, and Ilara felt something shift inside her chest. Not the mate bond, that was gone forever, but something better, something chosen rather than fated. A love built on shared pain and healing, on trust and time. When they finally pulled apart, Ilara was crying, but this time the tears were joy. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "Yes, I love you too." They returned to the palace hand in hand, and found Arya waiting up despite the late hour, bouncing with excitement in her nightgown. "You kissed?" the little girl squealed. "I saw it in the moon's reflection in the pool. The moon goddess showed me." Damon laughed, sweeping his daughter into his arms. "And what did you think of that, little moon?" Arya threw her arms around both of them. "I think the moon finally gave us our family back." 3 months later, under that same full moon, Damon and Ilara stood before the pack and pledged themselves to each other, not as fated mates, but as chosen ones. Arya stood between them, holding both their hands, her smile bright enough to rival the moon itself. And when the ceremony concluded and the pack erupted in celebration, Ilara realized that Marcus had been wrong about everything. She wasn't weak, she wasn't worthless, she was exactly who she needed to be, not for some predetermined mate bond, but for the family she'd chosen and who had chosen her in return. The rejected Omega had found her place at last, not because destiny demanded it, but because love, real, chosen, fought for love, had led her home.